Yeah, and welcome to this Community Partnering Fund briefing event. Just a reminder, being recorded, cameras off if preferred, and the slides will be shared afterwards for anyone wanting those. So I'm Maria Spadafora. I'm one of a team of grants officers at Leeds Community Foundation and Give Bradford. And this morning we're going to be sharing information about this particular programme. We're going to include a presentation from Leah Larkin, who's the Social Responsibility Manager for Northern Power Grid. And we'll also be welcoming Claudia McFarlane from the African Caribbean Achievement Project, who'll talk a little bit about an activity they've been delivering. Excuse me. Right, so first of all, a little bit of information about Leeds Community Foundation and Give Bradford. We distribute funding and offer support to community organisations. We're one of 47 affiliated community foundations across the UK and represent one of the largest independent funders in our region. We offer a mix of philanthropic and statutory funding, and you'll see some data from last year. We funded 478 community organisations with 675 grants. Excuse me. So if we just move on, we'll share a little bit of insight. I'm trying not to read slides, by the way, because I know you can read those yourself. So just a little bit of insight into our vision and values. We as an organisation are really keen to develop relationships and work together with donors and with community organisations. And that's all about kind of working together to create that positive change we want to see in our society and our communities. And I think Northern Power Grid would agree that they also like to develop relationships with the organisations they support. And I'm going to hand over to Leah now, who will be able to give you a bit of background on Northern Power Grid's work and the support they offer communities.
Morning everyone, thanks very much for joining us today. I'm Leah Larkin, I'm the Social Responsibility Advisor, and I work with Michelle Cummings, the Social Responsibility Manager at Northern Power Grid, with Leeds Community Foundation to deliver this fund. Next, thank you. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about what Northern Power Grid does in case it's unclear. Just a very, very simple overview. The electricity is generated and it travels along the national grid. So what Northern Power Grid does is we manage the substations and overhead wooden poles, overhead cables and underground cables that the electricity travels through to get to homes and premises and businesses. So we're not an electricity or an energy supplier. The energy actually travels along the assets that Northern Power Grid owns. So that means that if there's a power cut, our teams are available 24/7 to fix that issue. And as well, if any new connections are needed for new housing estates or other premises, our teams look after that as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we distribute electricity to approximately 8 million people to 3.9 million homes. So we cover the North East Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire. We have about 840,000 of households are registered on our priority services register. So that's 21.5% of our customer base. And I'm going to come on to what the priority services register is in a minute. Our social indicator mapping has shown that 2 of our 9 operating zones are 52% of the population are in the UK top 30 for poverty, which makes our operating area the most socially deprived in the UK. So we obviously have obligations, social obligations, to do what we can to try and support those people where we can. Next slide, please, Rachel. Thanks. So with that in mind, we have a number of delivery partners that we work with. So on the STEM side of things, the education side, we work with a program called Energy Heroes. That's a primary schools program that supports young people to look at the energy data of their school to improve their math skills and learn about decarbonisation in that as well. We work with the Ahead Partnership to deliver similar type programs in primary schools and secondary schools, again, focusing on learning about the journey to net zero and how young people can get involved to support that. In terms of fuel poverty, we have long-standing relationship, in particular with Citizens Advice Leeds and Newcastle, to support people who might need support with any debt advice or income maximisation in the North East and Yorkshire. We've just expanded that support to South Yorkshire, so we're working with Citizens Advice Sheffield now, and we'll be working very shortly. We'll be starting that delivery of that support in Hull to cover the Humber as well. We work with Green Doctor, who do they do visits to people's homes and do like an energy audit to support people to use less energy to try and save money on their bills in a healthy way. And finally, we also deliver work with Energy Saving Trust as well, who offer a telephone service to people who need help with income maximisation and debt advice as well. And then the community funding side of things, we obviously have the Community Partnering Fund that we're talking about today. Community Energy Fund is something that's just been set up as well, and that's to support, it's up to £10,000 for community organisations who are starting up community energy projects. And you may have seen recently in the news as well that we are launching a new resilience fund. That's in the very, very early stages. That's to support community resilience. So I don't have any other information on that at the moment, but it will obviously, as things develop, we'll share that information. Thank you. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the Priority Services membership as well, because we hope that all of our everyone who might be more vulnerable during a power cut, it's really to their benefit to be signed up to the Priority Services membership. So we'd hope that if you work with people who might be in those circumstances, then you could potentially share the information with them about this service, this free service that we offer. Next slide, please, Rachel. So it's a click through this one, Rachel. So if you start with age-related, thanks. So this is just the kind of needs that might need supporting. So age-related relates to people of older people and families with children under 5. We've got safety, poor mobility, communications needs, chronic and serious illness, and you can see them yourself there. But basically, it's really useful for us to know if our customers have any of these extra needs, because then we can, if there is a power cut, we can prioritize them and communicate them with them in the way that that's best for them, and deliver a service that's most appropriate for them in those circumstances. So if you could go to the next slide, please, Rachel. Thanks. So these are the kind of things that we can offer people in those circumstances. If there is a power cut, we can offer emergency accommodation if it's not safe for them to stay in their home, hot meals if it's not convenient or they can't afford to go out and get a meal. If they haven't got energy in their own home, then we can organise that. We can help people be more prepared as well, depending on what their circumstances are. So helping them to make sure they've got backup oxygen, for example. We can offer British Red Cross support, alternative communications, generators, and we have customer support vehicles that we send out into communities as well if there is a power cut. That might be all new to you. It's really easy to sign up people to the Priority Services membership. It takes a couple of minutes on our website, but if anyone wanted any leaflets or information or registration forms, I'd be happy to share those with people as well. Thanks, Rachel. Thank you, that's it from me.
Thanks, Leah. Right, so we'll just have a look at the Community Partnering Fund criteria now. So there are grant sizes available of between 1,000 and 10,000 per year for a 1 year of activity, or you can apply for a 2-year grant, and you can apply for up to £20,000, which would be split equally across the 2 years. There are 4 main themes which applications can respond to. You can respond to these either individually or in combination. So the first theme is around alleviating hardship associated with fuel poverty and looking at energy-related environmental impact, efficiency, things like that. So, for example, that might include an element of food and fuel support for people in need, such as vouchers. But if you are offering that kind of support, the funder would like to see it fully rounded. So think about things like training, support and signposting that will better equip people to understand and manage energy use and basically be as efficient as they can be. The second theme is around supporting community hubs with crisis planning. And this is a new theme, so we're quite interested to hear from communities and organisations around how they might respond to this particular theme. And really the focus here is on strengthening organisations to just much more confidently navigate challenges. So things like power cuts, which Leah mentioned. The third theme is developing learning pathways and or support in science, technology, engineering and maths subjects or career opportunities. And it's really worth pointing out that this isn't just about children and young people. We'd really welcome applications that are working with people who will be considered underrepresented in related careers. So that might be women, it might be people from ethnic minority backgrounds. The fourth key theme is around supporting communities to lower their carbon footprint. And again, this is a new theme. So again, really interested to hear your ideas and responses to this. So that may include ideas around decarbonising your own organisation, your own building, but also about how you would offer, again, something more fully rounded that offers advice, community support to individuals, to residents, about the practical steps they can take as well. So like I said, decarbonising your premises, but things like reducing waste, increasing recycling, gaining a better understanding of energy use and management, efficiency again, and exploring local supply chains, and support services and that general awareness raising. Additionally, all applications should consider embedding the following support where it's relevant for the people taking part. So as Leah's mentioned, they're really keen to encourage people to explore that priority services membership. So when you are working with communities and individuals, do a little bit of an audit with them and find out if that's something that would be relevant for them, and where possible support them to sign up to it. And also they're keen to see, the funders are keen to see communities informed and educated about electrical safety. All applications need to demonstrate a good track record, a clear need for support, and that potential for good impact with your communities. And this is the first time we've offered 2-year grants for this particular fund. So the funders are keen to kind of see that potential for sustainability and impact beyond the grant period. So that particularly applies to those 2-year grants. In addition to the criteria, we thought it would be useful to share some quick examples, and I will mention that all of this information is available on the website and in the criteria for the Community Partnering Fund. So these are some examples of how you might respond to a particular theme. So the first theme around alleviating hardship. A community organisation might, for example, partner with a food bank and offer that energy efficiency and fuel debt advice alongside that practical direct support, and also help people to sign up to the priority services membership, and like I said, use part of the grant towards more direct support. So it might be fuel vouchers or food packs. Example in response to the second theme, which is around supporting community hubs with crisis planning. The hub, for example, might pay for a consultant to work with them to prepare for a power cut. They'd create information and response packs for local residents. So that might include like key information, points of contact, any sort of resources they'd need. The third theme around STEM subjects, learning pathways, careers. The organisation might develop a programme of workshops for young women, for example, that develops their understanding and experience of engineering. And those workshops could be enhanced with a series of guest speaker events and really focus on that role modelling element. So actually involve kind of women who work in the industry in delivering kind of support sessions and so on. And our final example is the fourth theme, which is supporting communities to lower their carbon footprint. And in this example, a hub might work towards becoming a greener building, but also a greener local resource. So they might expand their community garden and develop a composting scheme, involve residents in that, and then also use part of their grant as match to raise further funding to invest in solar panels, and then longer term be generating part of their electricity independently and reducing that dependence on fossil fuels. So they are just some kind of fictional but informed examples of what could be done with a community partnering fund grant. But I'm now going to hand you over to Claudia McFarlane from ACAP, and she's going to talk about a real example of a funded activity. Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, lovely. Yeah, as I was just introduced, my name's Claudia, and I'm from the African Caribbean Achievement Project. We're actually beneficiaries of this grant fund, and we've used our grant funding to start a new science club in the heart of Bradford's Black community, located in BD7, which is an area of high social deprivation. We actually see children coming from all parts of Bradford to access this science club. It's been an amazing opportunity for us as a charity to be able to deliver science, practical science and STEM learning to children who would not normally, get a chance to do some of the high level science that we're doing. We work on a role model sort of basis, and that's how the charity actually runs, because we're a volunteer-led charity and we recruit volunteers from the local community that we call role models to work across our range of programs. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the different things we do, because I'm just going to concentrate on the Science Club today. But so far, we've managed to recruit 37 children that we can regularly work with, but we do have a waiting list of children that want to access the Science Club. It is delivered in conjunction with Dr. James Poulter, who is from Leeds, a scientist from Leeds University, and he brings the level of expertise that we need to make it as meaningful as possible, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to nurture future scientists, because we applied for this grant because of the underrepresentation of Black young people studying STEM subjects at university and then going on to have careers in STEM. It's something that we identified many years ago, and we've worked in sciences for a few years now, in partnership with the British Science Association. So we're very, very enthused about anything science related and STEM related. So our children, the youngest is 5 years old, but that we've got a few young children, but they are accompanied by their parents, and their parents have to stay on site. But the average children, I'd say 12 to 14 years old, that are accessing it. We've got a lot older, and we do have a lot younger, but I'd say that they're the core of the group that come on a regular basis. And they've done everything that you can think of under the sciences, everything from energy, looking at space, looking at fossils, looking at forensics. They've done fun activities like making slime, because they seem to love that sort of stuff, and everything in between. We've had amazing feedback for the science club, both from the children themselves and their parents, who can see the knock-on effect, not only in the sort of science related subjects that they're studying at school, but the other subjects, because there's a new passion for learning which we've unlocked, and just a renewed energy to really achieve and do well. As a charity, we are called the African Caribbean Achievement Project, and we focus on that word achievement, and we want children in particular to do fantastic in every subject at school, so that they can achieve, you know, in the future, and become active citizens, you know, that participate positively to society. There's a lot I could say about the club. I invite questions from anybody, but you can see from the pictures that it's very hands-on. It's a hands-on learning experience. A lot of our young people are what we describe as kinesthetic learners. They need to be able to touch it and feel it, to absorb it and understand it. And with this grant, we've been able to buy, you know, some really good science resources. We've got a science cupboard that's packed with different science resources that young people use, including the science overalls that they use. I don't know what the professional term is for them, but you know, they dress like scientists when they come. So the whole mindset is on, you know, I am a scientist. This is what we teach them. You know, I am a scientist, because the whole world is science. So they come and they get dressed and they take part in a variety of different experiments, and we have discussions and debates around science. And we're just planning a trip to the British Science Museum that we're hoping can take place during the summertime. So this whole fund has been amazing for us. If there's anybody in the audience, as I'm sure there is, who want to apply for it, I would say go for it, because it's really enabled us to do work that we were not funded to do before. We would probably never get a chance to do this type of work. So we're very grateful, and we invite anybody to come to one of our clubs and have a look for yourself. I can go on if you want.
Thanks so much, Claudia. That was really good. And somebody has put in the comments that's an impressive model, and I'd echo that. I'd quite like to come. Sounds fun.
Yeah, anybody can come. Obviously, don't just drop in because of safeguarding, but prior, if you make an appointment on any of the clubs, because we have a lot of parents that come. We have a lot of adults that have come through, because it's the first of its kind in the community. So there was a lot of curiosity, especially in the beginning. So yeah, we welcome visitors.
Yeah, somebody's asked questions. We may as well look at that now. They've asked if you developed the curriculum yourselves.
Yes, we did, in conjunction with the young people, you know, in terms of some of the things that they wanted to learn. We wanted to get across key concepts that they're learning in school. And we developed the program with Dr. James Poulter, who is a scientist and has been through it himself. So he knows the sort of things that we need to embed in the young people. So yeah, there's a proper curriculum. Brilliant.
Thanks again for sharing that. And if anyone does have any further questions, there'll be an opportunity at the end. Thanks. If we can move on to the next slide, Rachel, thank you. So back to the dry stuff, sorry people. So just moving on to the application process. this is just kind of a summary of who can apply. So obviously constituted community groups, registered charities, any kind of not-for-profit, CIC, CIO, but do check the criteria document for a much more detailed outline. You'll need to supply a copy of your governing document. We'll need information about your management committee or board of trustees, whatever language you use, and there needs to be at least 3 unrelated people who don't live at the same address. We'll need information at your bank account and assurance that transactions require at least 2 signatories. And there is a really wide geography for this fund, as Leah mentioned earlier. So do look at the criteria and make sure that you're in one of the areas that's covered by the fund, but it is really wide. And just some tips on applying. Do make sure you understand the criteria before applying. Don't just apply for the sake of it. Make sure it actually suits your needs in terms of your kind of projects or activities that you're delivering. Our application is an online process, so that means once you start it, you can just keep saving it and adding to it as a working document. You don't have to kind of sit down and get it all done in one go. So you can just kind of work on that at whatever pace suits you, and just submit by the deadline. Make sure your activity has kind of clear outcomes and explain what it is you want to achieve and how you'll achieve it. Check that your budget is detailed and that it's covered everything and that it adds up. It sounds really obvious, but I think when we're making applications, we get so close to them that sometimes we miss kind of detail and can make simple mistakes. So get somebody else to check it for you if needed. Make sure you attach all of the relevant documents. There'll be information about that on the criteria, but also on the application form itself. And you can kind of contact us if you've got any questions or you want to just kind of check your eligibility or something else before applying. Do feel free to just get in touch with us. And the deadline is 12 o'clock noon on the 2nd of August. And decisions will be circulated kind of early to mid-October. So do bear that in mind when you're kind of looking at your timeline and when your activity starts. And just a bit of information about monitoring and evaluation. Anyone who's been to a briefing with me before, I sound like a stuck record on this, but monitoring and evaluation is something that starts at the beginning. It's not something that you just do at the end of your activity. So do try to embed that across your activity once you start. When you, if you're successful, when you are sent your funding agreement, you'll also be sent a link to an online end of grant report. So that's a really good opportunity to have a look at that before you even start and look at the sort of information that will be needed by the funder when it comes to reported. Make sure you keep kind of accurate records. So, if you're delivering a project like ACAPS, for example, you'd want to keep track of how many sessions, the participants, so, alongside all the kind of feedback and financial information, receipts and all of that kind of practical stuff. Our reports will request a general overview and obviously expenditure information, but we also ask people to gather case studies where possible. So if you are kind of looking at including an individual or a group of people as a case study, do treat it in an anonymous way or present it in an anonymous way and reassure them that they won't necessarily be identifiable from that information. And and as I've kind of mentioned it really, but all the kind of statistical information about the people that have been supported. There are some really useful resources on our website. So if you look under the Our Grants drop-down menu, you'll find some resources in there that might be helpful. And I think, is there another slide? No, that's it. Right. So thanks everyone. if anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to speak now or drop us one in the chat, whatever you prefer.
There's one question there, Maria, from Kathleen Lee in the chat.
Ooh.
I've answered it.
Yeah, Shahed's answered that.
Oh, brilliant, thank you.
There is another one from Bryony. Please, can you let us know if the grant can be spent on capital as well as revenue?
It can within reason, and we ask for quotes for capital items costing more than £500, so supply that with your application. So just do your research beforehand.
It needs to be related to the actual activity, obviously. It can't just be general capital costs, like you need a new roof or something.
Any other questions? Any comments? Can it be spent on staff salaries? Yes, so we'd expect you to cover the costs of the people delivering the activity, but you can also put the relevant amount, proportional amount towards your staff overheads as well. So, you know, if your finance officer is spending 2 hours a month doing the bookkeeping, pay them for it, that 2 hours a month or whatever it might be. So yeah, you can put the relevant contribution towards your staff overheads as well as direct staff. But it's worth pointing out that there might be some restrictions there if you're not an incorporated organisation. So do read the criteria around the type of organisation and the type of cost that can be funded. Room hire, yeah, that's a completely legitimate cost. So if you're delivering a particular activity, yes, we'd expect you to cover those costs. You've received a grant this year, are you okay to reapply? So you can't hold concurrent grants from the same fund, but if your current activity is expected to end and you've submitted your report for the current activity, you can apply again to this fund.
Does the Learning Pathways theme have to be targeted towards careers in STEM, or is work supporting improving digital literacy and access eligible? Shahed just answered that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the focus is on science, technology, engineering and maths. So it's really about, as we mentioned earlier, trying to work towards plugging that gap almost, and encouraging people who are underrepresented in those careers or don't necessarily have access to kind of good education and training around that. It's about offering support to those people. Shobha, have you got a question? Somebody's got their hand up.
Yes, no, I was muted, sorry.
No worries.
Yes. I was trying to get myself unmuted. Yes, I'm Shobha, and I live in the Northeast, and I've actually been on the board of our community foundation, Tyne and Wear, Northumberland. So I know a little bit how the community foundations work. And we have received, I'm chair of a charity that I founded, and we teach Indian classical dance to children born of Indian parents mainly, but anybody is welcome to start at any point in time. We also have started Bollywood dance classes for a few, quite a few years now. 2007 we started that. The group was founded in 1992, still going strong. Well done. So I'm not the chair anymore. I've given up the chairship. I was there forever. Nobody would let me go. And through that, I went to Community Foundation. I'm talking of our Community Foundation, Tyne and Wear, Northumberland. I was on their board for 8 years. And, you know, they do know that we are honest and authentic, and we do what we say we do. So it's quite not that difficult for us to get funding. However, recently we've started a couple of new projects with obviously to do with COVID. One was the mindfulness activity that we started, and the other one is the gardening project. One of our board members is a very keen gardener, and I, through the council, got her an allotment, and she's doing extremely well. Thank God for that. Where do you think we could apply for any other community foundation besides the area we live in? That's actually my main question.
It will depend on the particular program. So with this particular program, if you check the criteria document, and there's a long list of areas that are covered. So it includes Teesside and the northeast. But there's a much more detailed list. So do have a look. And if, for example, the allotment project that you've described, if it sounds as though there's some potential there, do explore it if this fund is relevant for it. But, as I said earlier, just make sure this is the right fund for you.
Yeah. We have actually received funding for that project for 2 weeks and for such like, and also the lady works with just volunteers. So the volunteer expenses when they travel to the allotment and back, mostly she drives them back and forth. And we like to give her a little bit of petrol and so on. She welcomes that.
Yeah, and they're the sort of expenses.
And tools, of course, and it's quite a big allotment. So she's got quite a lot of work cut out for her and her volunteers. She's now just recently got a couple of employees. So do you think we can get funding for salaries? I thought you couldn't generally. Yeah.
I'd refer you to the criteria for this particular fund, Shobha. And so just check that it's the right one for you. You can also sign up to receive bulletins about funding programs as they open. It's not very often we have funds that cover your region by the sounds of it, but it sounds as though you've got good connections with your own community foundation and other sources of funding anyway. So I, just obviously advise you to sign up to that information as well. Does anybody else have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kath, you got your hand up.
Thanks, Shahad.
Right.
Morning, everyone. I'm just trying to work this through about how this might work for some of our more affected residents in the Wakefield district, because it's people living in private landlord accommodation that actually has very poor insulation. The things that we might be looking at to support them in an information pack, actually they might not be able to do because they're living in private accommodation. Could you sort of expand on that a bit, Maria, please?
Oh, this is something I've actually raised myself, because it is one of those challenges, isn't it, in terms of decarbonising, for example. One of the things we're all encouraged to do is to make sure your loft insulation is really good and you're retaining the heat and all of that, which of course, if you have no agency because you're a tenant, which is me as well, it means you aren't in a position to actually action that. So I can't really give any advice on that other than, for those particular tenants, I don't know whether there's any kind of support network or anyone who can support them around that, but it is ultimately up to the landlord because it is their property. I don't know whether Leah has anything to add on that.
No, you're right, Maria. It's a really difficult area. So yeah, no, I wouldn't really have anything else to add on that. It's a difficult one.
I mean, a lot of the private stock now is actually on community estates, so those residents might well go into the community hubs for support. They might not be able to pay the power bills. I'm just wondering if there's a way that the hubs could work with those residents to support them. You know, we're looking at an alleviation of hardship fund ourselves, and I'm just wondering if there's any way that we could match some of this.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that the challenges people are facing at the moment, and then the challenges that are coming in winter, that we are kind of powerless to an extent, aren't we? There's only so much we can do. So again, if Leah wants to add anything, but I think all we can do under the umbrella of this particular programme is, you know, there are opportunities there to give some direct support. So perhaps things like fuel vouchers, food, but as we mentioned, you know, kind of including that, you know, training, support, kind of green doctor assessments, anything that will kind of look at those kind of other things where people can make savings where they can, and ultimately that of course kind of impacts on efficiency as well as kind of personal finances. But yeah, I completely appreciate that there are massive limitations there in terms of what can be done with that bigger picture and those challenges.
Maria, we've got a question. Do medical doctors, can they be role models? Can they be considered as role models? I'm assuming the answer is yes.
I would have thought
that was a joke. That was a joke, darling.
Well, we can sign you up all the STEM courses now. That's it.
Definitely. Will it help to have a landlord in the hub and get some reimbursement to improve home insulation? I mean, again, this is up to the organisation to explore those avenues and see what's going to work for them and for their communities. I don't know whether, again, Leah, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so with the landlord issue, we struggle as well as anybody else. So we're kind of looking for support from community organisations, as you say, to come to us with ideas, hopefully, that we can support. But appreciate it's a very difficult issue.
So I've got another question. So work building core STEM skills with adults that not specifically focused. Sorry, I'm trying to understand the question as I'm reading it. So work building core STEM skills with adults that's not focused on STEM careers would be considered outside the remit. Not necessarily. I think, oh, apologies. I think, you know, we know that if you deliver a program of activity for a year with a group of adults, they're not going to instantly walk into a STEM career. It's about stepping stones, isn't it, and building blocks. So if you can articulate a good case for STEM activity with adults that is about broadening people's horizons and introducing people to things they may not have had access to for whatever reason, just because it's not necessarily leading to a career, I don't think that puts it out of the running at all. I think that sounds quite a legitimate activity. Do you accept? Yeah, arts organisations, yeah. So long as you know, it meets the criteria, your organisation is constituted in the right way, that you're a not-for-profit, and yeah, and so long as you bring in the correct, sorry, but so long as you bring in appropriate people to deliver that activity who kind of, you know, so it might be kind of green doctor support, whatever might be useful for whoever you're working with. Anyone else? Okay, well, if you've got no other questions or comments, as we said, we'll share the slideshow. The video will also be available on YouTube to share if you've got any other groups you want to kind of forward this to. And do feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions. Oh, it looks like we might have another question, apologies. We've got multiple projects across the regions, each self-funded, maintain their own accounts, but report back to a central office and have a shared bank account. Okay.
Can I please ask a final question of you?
Can I just deal with this one, Shobha?
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
No, it's okay. We've just had one in the chat. So somebody's saying they've got several different projects across the regions, but one central organisation. So I think it would just have to be the one organisation. Yeah, because ultimately the grant sits with that one entity. So you might have to kind of look at partnerships with the particular projects, but you can only make one application per organisation, I'm afraid. Right, I don't think there are any more questions in the chat. What did you want to ask, Shobha?
Well, just to say that if you're from another region, we can apply to another community foundation.
Of course, yeah, we definitely recommend that you sign up with your own local community foundation, so you can kind of access information on their programs as and when they're available.
Oh, well, very much signed up. I've been on the board and I'm very involved with their work. Yes,
you know what you're doing. You don't need advice from me.
I only started doing charity work when I retired, 1998 that was. But I started the organization before that, because a lot of our, I'm sure others will be interested in knowing this, a lot of our ladies from the Indian background were worried that their children knew nothing about the rich culture and the rich heritage, as well as all the artwork that India is able to do, especially dances, the classical dances of North of India and South of India. And that gives the children a little bit of idea of what the country does, because some of them have never been there. So, you know, that was the whole idea. And then a lot of local ladies came and said, we want to learn Bollywood. And I thought, what a good idea. And it turned out to be wonderful during the COVID, gave them exercise, gave them fun, and gave them friendship.
Oh, it sounds like you're doing amazing work and you're a role model to us all, Shobha. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we'll wrap up now, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. And yeah, we look forward to receiving your applications.